There's been no confirmation yet that any money is actually going to be returned, but an American tech company has created a calculator to do the math on just how much companies could expect to get back. You're looking at the Flexport tariff refund calculator. It's designed to help calculate the amount a company could be owed to prioritize claims in the events that refunds really do take place. But just how likely are those refunds at this point? Ryan Petersen is the founder and CEO of Flexport and joins us now. Ryan, thanks for doing this. It's such an interesting sort of time in your business. I wonder, in launching this tool, how likely do you think it is that your customers will end up actually seeing some of these refunds?
Oh, I think it's highly likely, bordering on certainty. I say that for a couple of reasons. First, I'm not a lawyer, so I shouldn't go that far. Lawyers always want to hedge. But I talked to 3 international trade attorneys in the United States this week since the Supreme Court ruling who did tell me that they had 100% certainty that there would be a refund. So I've never heard, usually lawyers are always hedging their bets and not want to give you total certainty. So that was one part of it. Second is I read the motions that the Department of Justice submitted in this case where they very clearly in plain English stated that if they lose the case, that there will be refunds. So I think it's going to go back to court. It's going to get litigated, but I think it's just a slam dunk because they already told the same court that there would be refunds. So it seems very likely.
It's one of those things that, I think we're all in favor of the private sector doing private sector things, but shouldn't getting a refund from the government be something that the government helps you do? Like, why do you have to launch this tool?
Well, in America, you need tools to file your taxes and get tax refunds. And by the way, this is no different than that. That's what customs brokers do, is help you be compliant. You can do it on your own. You can file your taxes on your own. You can represent yourself in a court of law on your own, but generally you want to hire a professional, hire a lawyer, make sure you don't go to jail. And it's not that different here. You want to make sure you get your paperwork done correctly, you actually file. It's not as simple as you would think because you paid IEEPA duties, but you didn't pay other duties that you should have paid, that those replaced. So it's going to be a bit of a mess, and that's what we've done is build algorithms to go calculate that for you, and then file the correct paperwork to go claim your refund.
And it's going to be a complicated process. They issue refunds all the time, but if I've got this right, a lot of them are like literal paper checks that they hand back to the importer of record. Like this is not an exactly automated process, is it?
Well, thankfully, actually, as of February 6th, there are no more paper checks. So that was true until a couple of weeks ago. The U.S. Customs updated their systems, and now the checks are being transferred. The money's being wired electronically. But yes, it's true. Flexport's gotten almost $900 million of refunds for our customers over the last 5 years, and that was done via paper checks, some of which got lost in the mail. A few got cashed by fraudsters. So it's a big upgrade for customs to do it that way.
I want to make this next question clear. The tariffs are paid by companies in the United States that are importing goods. It's not paid by foreign countries. But there are, for example, Canadian companies that have a presence in the United States that have been importing from wherever, maybe Canada, maybe around the world. Have you heard from any Canadian companies that are anchored in the United States that are trying to get refunds?
Yeah, sure. So it'll be companies around the world. And United States, the UK, and Hong Kong are the 3 countries in the world that allow foreign companies to import goods without having an entity. So in fact, Canadian companies can import into the U.S. without even needing a U.S. entity and pay those tariffs, and they'll be getting these refunds too. So about 20% of trade in the United States has shifted towards the foreign company that imports the goods, and a foreign company pays the imports, and then 80% is paid by the U.S. company, which also could be a U.S. wholly owned entity by a Canadian company. So yes, certainly lots of Canadian companies ship to the United States and pay tariffs, whether it's a subsidiary or it's their customer. Now, if it's the customer that's buying the goods, now it's a business question because it's the importer of record that gets the refund. But we're already hearing cases where, for example, if you sold to Walmart is starting to call their big wholesalers who sell goods to them and say, hey, now that you're getting this tariff refund, we want to talk. Well, where's our piece of that?
Right. Fair enough. Can you just, I spoke to you at the beginning of the tariff process about how complicated you thought this was going to be for businesses, for brokers like yourselves, for anybody trying to navigate this system. Just can you sum up the last year? How difficult has it been to navigate this process? How much of a weight has it been on just trying, these companies are just trying to do business, just trying to grow their business?
Yeah, for sure. And, the cost of the tariffs is the main thing. That's what everyone talks about. But the cost of compliance is very real, too, just like actually getting it right. There were 53 executive orders that changed the tariff code last year. in 52 weeks. So being able to stay on top of that has been incredibly difficult for the customs brokerage industry, for the importers that they serve. And really, it actually has allowed Flexport to differentiate ourselves. Like you need technology. You got to have good databases to track these changes. But just tech alone doesn't work because you need experts to read the rules and interpret them and then figure out how the algorithm should work in the software. So this has been an opportunity for us, but yeah, a real pain for our customers to keep up with it all.
And now that we've shifted, like you say, there's been 50-some changes to the tariff code. Now we've shifted to a new one where it's 10% now. It might go up to 15%. Has that regulatory burden shifted at all as a result of the Supreme Court ruling?
Yeah, what we'd expect is, so the president, under the U.S. Constitution, as most folks know by now, it's the Congress that controls the tariff, not the president. And there's only a few exceptions to that. There were a few acts of Congress that gave the president authority to do tariffs, unlimited circumstances. Now, IEEPA was the one that the Supreme Court struck down. That was never used before for tariffs. It was always used for things like sanctions and other ways of just like cutting off trade completely. And that's now off the table. Now, IEEPA had a feature that the president liked, which was under their interpretation, it gave them blanket authority to kind of do what they want. They could just wake up in the morning and declare a tariff. And they did this on Canada a couple of times. They were not happy with how a negotiation went or some conversation and you drop a tariff. The other acts of Congress that give the president authority to do tariffs are much more limited in their scope. So the current one is called Section 122. Right. That's what went live over the weekend, where now but it has a limit of 15% and a temporary only 150 days, which ends July 20th. There are other acts that also give the president authority to do this, namely Section 301 and Section 232. Both of those require much more, you might call it thoughtfulness, an investigation by the Commerce Department or the U.S. Trade Representative, where you have to be very specific and say, well, in this industry, in this sector, for this country, then you have to present a case and say, yeah, we've done our homework and they were in fact doing anti-competitive things or this or that. So I would expect it to be a little bit less volatile, but not necessarily lower rates, and it might be just as complex because it's kind of coming at one sector at a time in ways that aren't that transparent and are easy to understand.
This time last year, you told CBC News, and I pulled up the quote, that the coming year was going to be messy, expensive, and chaotic. You were right. What do you think 2026 is going to be like?
Same adjectives. I think it's not simple. With, I guess, the benefit, I do think people are going to get a big, nice refund check. And I have been advising companies, don't just go spend it all at once. I already talked to companies, and they're like, yeah, we're about to go buy a whole lot more inventory. And I don't know, that's always the right move. You might want to save it for a rainy day, put it in the bank account.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thanks so much for this. Really appreciate it. Ryan Petersen, CEO of Flexport.